Graeme, George Osborne said this was a budget intended to make the UK one of the most competitive economies for business in the G20. Yep. Has he done that?
I think he's gone a long way to doing that. If you go back 5-6 years ago, the UK corporate tax rate, for instance, was at 30%. In a couple of years' time, that rate's now going to be 23%. So he's done something on the rate, so that's the headline rate. But also, it's not just the headline rate that's important, but it's the tax base as well. And he's also put some changes into that, in particular around what is included in the tax base and the reliefs that he's providing within that. So the new rules that we'll have for the controlled foreign companies rate is going to be important to understand fully. Because what that is doing is the way it taxes UK businesses that are operating overseas and how their overseas profits are taxed. A number of UK businesses have been what we call inverting, i.e. leaving the UK and going to lower tax jurisdictions like Ireland, Switzerland, for instance. But I think what he's done here is hopefully halted that and meant that a number of these businesses will stay. He's also introduced a number of other allowances, including the enterprise zone for investment in the UK as well. He's also talking about extending the tax depreciation rules, research and development rules as well. But coupled with all of that, I think it's not just about the tax system, but doing business in the UK. And he talked about reducing the amount of red tape. £350 million worth of costs will be taken out of companies doing business in the UK, so I think that's to be applauded. He's also introduced some tax simplification, reducing the tax code by 100 pages. That means that he's trying to create a more certain position for those that want to do business in the UK from the tax perspective.
And he's opened the book again on the merging of the NI and the income tax regimes. That's been talked about and shied away from in the past. Do you think he's actually going to do that this time?
I think he is. He's talking about consultation in relation to that and how that's going to happen. I mean, these are two taxes that have been in existence for decades and have got their own tax legislation and codes around it and practical implications for how you operate both of them. So bringing them together, I think, will help business to reduce the costs because both taxes are actually applied to the same income, i.e. your earnings that you get from the jobs that we do in the economy.
And of course he said that this was going to be a fiscally neutral budget. In other words, that there are winners and losers. Yep. Who are the losers out of this? Well,
I think in terms of some of the corporate tax changes, it's going to be the banks, because he said he's going to adjust the bank levy to make sure that the banks don't get the benefit of the reduced corporate tax rate coming down to 23%. And then the fuel duty escalator, he has to pay for that in some way. Not only did he abolish that and inflation, but he reduced the fuel duty by a penny. And to do that, the oil companies are going to have to pay more. Their supplementary tax is going to be increasing from 20% to 32% to pay for that.
That's potentially a big risk because there are parts of the budget that are intended to encourage businesses to the UK. This could be encouraging these two big industries out of the UK.
Well, I think that's right, and he has taken a calculated risk there, hasn't he? And there's a political motivation, I suppose, in relation to the way the banks and the way people feel about the banks at the moment, so that's true. And the oil companies, I think he's just ridden on the commodity prices and the oil price. And I think where he says he's put fairness into that is that he will re-look at this if the oil price falls below $75 a barrel. And if that happens, then hopefully fuel prices come down, the economy moves forward as well because of the lower cost of fuel. So I think in the balance there, the oil companies are just being targeted because the oil price is so high and it looks as if it could go higher.
Graeme, thank you very much.
Thank you.